Hi everybody, I'm Bonnie with Bonnie Babe Crochet, and today I wanted to show you how to make Bonnie's Easy Summer Top. This is made using a self-striping yarn. Comes together very quickly. I think it would be a wonderful project if you know the basic stitches but maybe are a little intimidated about making a garment that is fitted. This particular stitch is very elastic, so I think it will be one that has a lot of ease for you. It's also very easily customizable to your unique size. Well, let me go ahead and show you what you're going to need. For this project, I'll be using Knitting Fever's painted lace yarn, and this is a 100% cotton fiber. It's a number 2 or a fine, or some refer to this as a sport weight. Each cake has 874 yards or 800 meters. And let's take a look at the colorway here and just show you how beautiful this is. They do have many other colorways available in this particular brand, and I know there are many other brands out there on the market should you have those nearby. For sizes large to 3X, you may actually need 2 of these. I'm going to use just one of these for a size medium, and of course a small would just require 1. For this project, I'm recommending that you have 2 crochet hooks. First, a size G or 6 or 4.00 millimeter crochet hook. You are also going to need a size F or 5 or 3.75 millimeter crochet hook, and as always I'm recommending that you have a yarn needle and a pair of sharp scissors handy. I also highly recommend that you have a tape measure as you work. Let's go ahead and get started. To begin, we're going to start with our size G or 6 or 4.00 millimeter crochet hook. We're going to make the slip knot, and then we're going to chain 210 chains. After crocheting those 210 chains and being careful not to twist the chain, we want to join with a slip stitch to the very first chain. Now we're going to carefully chain 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to work a double crochet in that very first stitch where we joined. This chain 2, by the way, does not count as a stitch as we do this first row, or round actually, and we're going to just simply work a double crochet in the side of each chain all the way around. At the end of this round, you should have a total of 210 double crochets. Okay, after working this all the way around, and you do want to make sure that this is not twisted, that it is nice and even as you go around row 1, and we're going to join with a slip stitch to that first stitch of the round to the top of that double crochet. Chain 2. Now we're going to work the ribbing stitch, which starts with a front post double crochet followed by a back post double crochet. We're going to work that all the way around these 210 stitches. Front post double crochet and back post double crochet. So go ahead and work that all the way around. At the end of round 2, we're just going to join with a slip stitch to the top of that first stitch. Okay, we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and we're going to go ahead and repeat round 2 again. So round 3 is the same as round 2. We work a front post double crochet over that first stitch, and then a back post double crochet. We're just continuing the ribbing one more row, or round rather. So we're just going to work this all the way around. At the end of round 3, we just join with a slip stitch just like we did at the end of round 2, and I'm doing this in the top of that double crochet. Now this will be a really good time to go ahead and lay this flat like this on the ground and get a measurement so that you can be sure that going forward this is the size that you want, and you want to check with the hip measurements in the pattern. For the size medium, I am getting approximately 20.5 inches, which means total circumference would be 41 inches, which is about where I want to be. Of course, there is going to be just a little bit of ease, not a lot, but a little bit of ease with that as well. Okay, now we're going to go on to round number 4. And this is where we begin the wattle stitch, which is the main stitch of this project. We're going to chain 2, and starting in the first stitch, we're going to single crochet, chain 1, and double crochet in the same stitch. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and in the third stitch, we're going to do that again, single crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and this is pretty much what we're going to do all the way around. Skip 2, single crochet, chain 1, double crochet in the next stitch, and again skip 2, single crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and we're going to work this all the way around. At the end of this round, we're going to skip the last 2 stitches, 1, 2, and we're going to join with a slip stitch to the chain 2, or actually this is a chain 1 at the very beginning of this round, just like that. And then we're going to turn. This is the first time in the project that we are turning, so this is going to start row 5. It's with the back side facing. We're going to chain 2, and in each chain 1 space of the wattle stitches, which is right there, we are going to work another wattle stitch, which is a single crochet, chain 1, double crochet. We're going to skip the other stitches. We're just going to work in those chain 1 spaces all the way around. So to continue, we are going to just continue working the wattle stitches around. Then we're going to join with a slip stitch to the chain 2 at the end of the round. And again, you're going to turn at the end of each round, and we're going to work this until the measurements, and make sure that you have your measuring tool. We're going to measure from the very bottom, or from the beginning of the ribbing, and we're going to work this in pattern stitch, just using that wattle stitch, until this is approximately 6 inches long. Now again, I am making the medium size. Do check the pattern. You may need to work this until it's a little bit longer, or maybe just a tad shorter than that. And again, this is more size specific based upon the tape measure, more so than it is based upon the number of rounds. So therefore, the number of rounds that you work on this may vary, and that's quite all right, as long as you do it to where the right measurement is. Okay, so go ahead and do that until this measures approximately 6 inches from the very first row. Okay, now my project measures approximately 6 inches from the very bottom ribbing, which again is the bottom of the shirt or tunic, to this point. So that's approximately 6 inches. Now we're going to do something very, very important. We were using the size G crochet hook, or whichever gauge hook I guess you've been using, and we're going to change it to one size smaller. I'm going to the F, or size 5, or 3.75 millimeters. This is just one way in order to control the size just a little bit. This is going to come inward. As you can imagine, this part is going to be the part that goes down over the hip section. And now we want to just tighten it in a little bit. And the way we do that, again, is to change the size of the hook one size, and it will slightly go in and give it a nice feminine taper. So no matter what size you're doing, go ahead and bring that smaller hook on board. And we're just going to continue working rounds, again, of the wattle stitch only, and turning at the end of each round, just like we've been doing. And I'll go ahead and tell you the number of rows, although the number of rows that you have may be slightly different, and that is okay. but I did 20 rounds from this point. That's of the wattle stitch. I'm not including these ribbing rows, which would be 3 of those. So if you include the ribbing rows, that would be approximately 23 rows. But again, the number of rows is not so important as the measured distance. And when you measure this, make sure that you're not pulling on it this way or pulling on it this way. Make sure that it's the fabric is laying at rest as you measure it. That way you'll get the most accurate measurement. Now, after changing to the smaller hook, I know I'm repeating myself a lot here, but do make sure that you go to the smaller hook. We are going to just continue in the rounds until the entire piece measures in length approximately 17 to 17 and a quarter, even 17 and a half, just around the 17-inch mark. I promise you a quarter or half of an inch is not going to make that much of a difference. Just make it a tad bit longer. Okay. After crocheting this to approximately 15 inches, let me show you how beautifully this yarn works out. So this is quite lovely. I'm really enjoying this, watching the colors progress. So once the section measures 15 inches or whatever length you would desire for the size that you're making, we're going to start working the armhole openings. And let me just explain something before we go any further. This is the connecting line, and I'm going to have that be on one side under the arm of the shirt or tunic. So now we're ready to begin the first row of the armhole indentation. Go ahead and chain 1, and we're going to skip this double crochet and slip stitch in that chain 1 space and slip stitch in that single crochet. And then we're going to do this one more time. Slip stitch in the first stitch and then slip stitch in that single crochet. Then we're going to chain 1, and then we are going to begin our wattle stitches again. The single crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet. So that's the first wattle stitch. We're going to work 32 more of these, so we're going to work a total of 33 wattle stitches. So just to keep an accurate count and so that I don't lose my way in this project, I'm going to put a stitch marker in that very first wattle stitch. And the section that we are going to be working right now is the front. We're going to be working the front of the tunic. So go ahead and work those 33 total. Of course, this is the first one. So 33 wattle stitches across. After working those 33 wattle stitches, we're going to work a single crochet in the next stitch. And just to let you know that these number of wattle stitches are going to vary for other sizes. So if you're working smaller or larger sizes than a medium, please check the written pattern for the exact number of wattle stitches there. Okay, so we're going to turn. I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and starting in the very first chain 1 space, go ahead and work wattle stitches all the way across till you get to the stitch marker. And let's go ahead and pause, and let's go ahead and put a stitch marker right here in that turning chain, just so that we're aware of where we are in this pattern. It's really easy for it to kind of be blended in and hard to see where the rows begin. So that way our first row with the decreases for the underarm are marked clearly for us. Okay, so go ahead and work the wattle stitches all the way across until you get to the last wattle stitch. We're not going to work that one in the same way. So go ahead and work that across. After working this all the way across, we come to the very first wattle stitch, and we're just going to work a single crochet in that, thereby creating another decrease. Okay, let's go ahead and turn, and this will begin row 3 of the underarm. Again, this is on the front side. I'm going to go ahead and chain 2, and we are going to work in wattle stitches all the way across until you get to the last stitch, and then we will also work a single crochet in that last stitch to create another decrease, but I'll work that with you. So go ahead and work these wattle stitches all the way across the row. Okay, at the end of the third row of the armhole section for the front, we work a single crochet in that last stitch, creating another decrease. Okay, now this is the next row. This is row 4 of the decrease for the armhole, and this is the last row that we decrease. Go ahead and chain 2, and we're going to work wattle stitches all the way across until we get to the last wattle stitch of the row. Now, if you are using a solid color, you can just continue working in pattern stitch over the 30 wattle stitches until the area from the beginning where we started making the armhole, from that point to the point where we stop, measures approximately 5.5 inches, because then we're going to have to work something different for the collar so that it dips down in the front of the shirt. However, if you are working with the color changing yarn, like the beautiful Knitting Fever yarn that I am using today, I'm actually going to fasten off, and I'm just going to go forward by doing that. I'm going to fasten off, not because we're going to stop working, but because we want the yarn changing effect to remain as much close to the front as it will be in the back. So since the color at this point hasn't changed too much, I'm going to rejoin my yarn and start working the 4 decreased rows for the back section. Okay, so let me show you where I am at this point. We just finished working the front decreases, which is behind the work here, and make sure that you are starting with the back side of the wattle stitch from the previous row facing you. Okay, so that way it remains consistent with the work that we did over here. So here was the stitch marker, and so I'm going to this is where we work the single crochet. So that's 1, 2, and then we're going to skip 2 more, 3, 4. Okay, we're going to join in the 5th. Okay, so over in that 5th wattle stitch, I'm going to go ahead and make a slip knot so that I can rejoin my yarn. And go ahead and make a chain. Let's go ahead and make a single crochet in that space, and then we're going to go on working wattle stitches in the next chain 1 spaces. Go ahead and work this all the way across until you have about 5 wattle stitches that have not been worked before, let me show you, before you get to the next stitch marker here. So don't work those last 5 wattle stitches, and then I'll show you how to end this first row of the armhole decrease for the back side. So after having worked this across, let's go ahead and look at this. This is where the first wattle stitch of the front was worked, and this is where the slip stitches. So let's just count these wattle stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're not going to work in those, and then we're just going to work a single crochet in that 5th. So let's go ahead and look at this again. These are the 2 that we first worked the slip stitches over, and then this is the join seam after doing those many rounds of the tunic, and then we have 1, 2 wattle stitches that are not going to be used on this side of this join seam that is here, which really doesn't look bad at all, because it's really nice and that it doesn't stand out terribly. Okay, so now that is row 1 of the back of the underarm decreases. So let's look at row 2. Let's go ahead and chain 2, and we're going to work wattle stitches all the way across, just like we did on the front, until you get to the last wattle stitch, and then we'll just work a single crochet, and I'll show that to you. So go ahead and work across. This is again row 2 of the underarm decreases for the back. Now I've gotten to the end of row 2, and this is the last wattle stitch, and I did forget to mark this, so let me go ahead just for clarity, since I am teaching. I'm going to go ahead and mark this. as the last wattle stitch. I should have done that back when I joined the yarn, but I neglected to do that, so forgive me for that. But I just wanted to go ahead and mark it now. And we're going to go ahead and work a single crochet only to create another decrease. So now we are going to turn, and this is beginning row number 3. Go ahead, chain 2. Actually, for the next 2 rows, we're going to chain 2, and we're going to work a wattle stitch in each of the wattle stitches all the way until you get to the last stitch. And you can see it clearly here, but I probably should mark that with another stitch marker, which I'll do in just a second. And when you get to that last wattle stitch, simply work a single crochet only, thereby creating another decrease. So go ahead, row 3, work all the way across, work a decrease, and then row 4, do that one more time where you work all the way across the row and then work a single crochet in the last stitch. So go ahead and work rows 3 and 4, decrease rows of the back of the armhole opening. Okay, I've gone ahead and completed those 4 decrease rows on the armhole on the back side. And so now what I'm going to do is measuring again from the armhole where this begins. We're going to crochet in pattern stitch on the wattle stitch on the 24 wattle stitches for the medium size across, just by working a chain 2, working a wattle stitches all the way across. And when you get to the last wattle stitch, make sure you don't work a decrease, but you're going to work a wattle stitch. Actually, I'll work this row with you and show you what this is going to look like. But we're going to work this from the armhole upwards until the back section measures 7 inches. So I'm going to work on this. I'm going to show you how the row ends in just a second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to work this until it is 7 inches. And the front side, I'm going to work until it's 5.5 inches. Now, as I work, I'm going to alternate working on the back side in pattern stitch and then the front side, again, just straight up without adding or decreasing anything, again, across these stitches here, or the back and the front. And I'm going to probably change by cutting my yarn in order to maintain the color gradient. I'm going to do this about every 4 to 5 rows so that any color change will not be noticed, that it would look very uniform on both the front and the back. I hope that makes sense. So let me go ahead and show you what it looks like to work in pattern stitch. We're just going to chain 2, and this goes for the front and the back. It's just that the number of wattle stitches each row will look slightly different because there will be fewer on the back side. Okay, so we work the wattle stitches, just working in those chained 1 spaces of the wattle stitches all the way across. So for these pattern stitch rows, I just wanted to be clear, I've worked all the way across. Here's the last wattle stitch, worked in that chain 1 space. Remember, this is where we were working the decreases before, but we don't want to decrease at this point. And then in this chain 2 space, work that last single crochet. And then again, we will turn as we continue to work until the back side is 7 inches and until the front side is 5 inches. And we just, again, starting in those chain 1 spaces, just work wattle stitches all the way across. So I'm going to go ahead, working these rows and alternating my yarn as needed so that I can maintain the color gradient. And then I'll show you what I have. Okay, now that the distance from where the armhole was started to this point is approximately 5 inches, and this is on the front side of the sweater. Let's go ahead and turn, and we are going to begin working the decreases for the neckline. So what we're going to do is we're going to build up some of the stitches on this side with decreases at the neck edge, and then once we finish this, we'll go to the other side and mirror or do exactly what we did, but opposite, or so that it mirrors it on the other side of the sweater. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is we're going to chain 2, and we're going to work in those wattle stitches for only 10 stitches. Okay, so we're going to work 10 wattle stitches. So after working 10 of the wattle stitches, let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Of course, if you are doing the larger sizes or the smaller sizes, this count will differ slightly. Okay, so after that, we're just going to work a single crochet in that next wattle stitch, and that ends row 1 of the neck decrease. Now for row 2 of the right neck decrease, we're going to chain 1. We're going to single crochet in that first wattle stitch, and this will constitute another decrease, and then work wattle stitches in each of the remaining 9 wattle stitches. At the end of the second row of the neck decrease, just work a single crochet at the armhole opening, and we're going to turn, and we're going to work row number 3. Go ahead and chain 2, and we're going to work wattle stitches in the next 8 wattle stitches, or in the chain 1 spaces. After working those 8 wattle stitches, we're going to single crochet in that last wattle stitch of the row, and that ends row 3. So now we're going to turn, and we're going to chain 1, and again, make sure that you are working at the neck edge when you do this. We're going to decrease that first stitch with a single crochet, and then go ahead and begin working wattle stitches in the remaining stitches across. You should have 7, I believe, at this point. So row 4 of the neck edge ends with a single crochet in that chain 2 space. Turn, and for row number 5, we're going to chain 2, and we are going to work wattle stitches across until we get to that last stitch. So we're going to work 6 wattle stitches. In the last wattle stitch, just work a single crochet. So you can see how nicely this neck edge is decreasing. Okay, so we're going to turn, and we're going to have 2 more rows to go. For row 6, chain 1, single crochet in that first chain 1 wattle stitch, and then work wattle stitches in the remaining 5 across. Row 6 of the neck decrease ends with a single crochet in that chain 2 space, and now we're going to do 1 more row, chain 2, and we're going to work wattle stitches in the first 4 wattle stitch chain 1 spaces. In that last wattle stitch, work a single crochet, and then we are going to fasten off. Give it a chain and a tug, and make sure you clip a generous strand. There we go, so that'll be easy to hide. Okay, let's take a look. So that would be one side of the tunic. So you can see where the neck edge is down here and how it has gone up for those last 2 inches. Okay, now we're going to work on the other side, and what we're going to do is we're going to count in 10 wattle stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then on the 11th from the left, we're going to insert our hook, and we are going to duplicate what we just did on the other side. Okay, work a slip knot. Make sure that you do have the back side facing as you connect this. So we're going to connect with a chain, and go ahead and work a single crochet in that spot, and then we begin by working those 10 wattle stitches. And just want to say that the stitches in between where the yarn was joined over here and over here, we're not going to work those. We're just going to leave those as they are for now. So go ahead and work those 10 wattle stitches. After working those 10 wattle stitches, this ends at the arm. Just make sure you're at the arm edge at this point and work a single crochet in that chain 2 space. And so now we're going to turn, and this is row 2 of the neck edge, and this is on the left front. Chain 2, and we're going to work 9 wattle stitches across. After working those 9 wattle stitches, single crochet in that last wattle stitch on that side. Let's go ahead and turn. Now for row 3 of the left side neck decrease, chain 1, single crochet in that first wattle stitch, and then single crochet, or actually work a wattle stitch in the next chain 1 space, and in the rest of these across. There should be 8 of these. At the end of row 3, work a single crochet in that chain 2 space, turn. For row number 4, go ahead and chain 2, and we're going to work wattle stitches across the row until we get the last stitch. I believe this will be 7 wattle stitches. After working those 7 wattle stitches, single crochet in that last one of the row, and then we're going to turn again, chain 1, and for row 5 we work a single crochet in that first chain 1 space, and then in the next chain 1 space we work a wattle stitch, and then each one across, so we should have 6 wattle stitches. And again, in that last space, work a single crochet in that chain 2 space. And let's go ahead and turn. Now for row number 6, we're going to chain 2, and we are going to work wattle stitches in the next 5 chain 1 spaces. In that last wattle stitch, work a single crochet, and this is the end of row number 6. Let's get through all the strands. There we go. And for row 7, we're going to turn, chain 1, single crochet in that first chain 1 space, and then wattle stitches in the remaining 4 chain 1 space of the previous wattle stitches. And at the end of the row, single crochet in the chain 2 space, and go ahead and let's fasten this off. Give it a generous strand so that we can hide it carefully. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. This is how our neck edge should look at this point. And you'll have 4 wattle stitches and a chain 2 space and a single crochet up here with which to connect to the other sides. So now I need to reattach my yarn to the back side and complete those 7 inches from the armhole that I told you about earlier, and then I'll show you how to attach the front and the back at the shoulders. Okay, I've completed both the front side and the back side, and let me show you what I have. This is with the back side facing, and if I turn it around, okay, you should have something that looks about like this. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to connect the top shoulder section, which is just this small section here over these stitches, and then we will disconnect that, and then we will connect the other side. But before we do that, I'm going to turn this inside out. So determine which side you like the best, and I've determined that previously, so you're going to see a lot of knots on the inside here where I had to cut the yarn for various reasons, not due to the yarn's fault, but due to changing color and so forth, especially up around this section here. Okay, and also just to show you that after completing the back side, I did not fasten off because I knew that I would be needing to join these sections here. So first, let's do a chain 1 and then I'm going to join with this, okay, with a slip stitch, just like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch in the single crochet, which is right here. There, try that again. All right, there we go. And then the single crochet, actually it looks like it's going to be a double crochet on the other side. And then I'm going to slip stitch also in the chain 1 spaces of these wattle stitches. Okay, so I'm going to do just 2 slip stitches per wattle stitch. I'm going to go into this single crochet. I'm going to match it to the double crochet of the next wattle stitch. Okay, this is the second wattle stitch. And I advise you to do this from the front side, with the front side facing, so that you don't add additional stitches that are unnecessary. Okay, so now I'm going to skip this stitch here. I'm going to go to the next wattle stitch and join these up. Just like that. I hope you can see that. And then in the chain 1 spaces. Okay, so that was the third. And I'm going to do one more. There we go. A little bit on the tricky side, but very doable. Okay, and so let's go ahead, and we're going to also do one in this single crochet here, and go ahead and join it to that next wattle stitch, the top there, of that double crochet. Okay, and when you turn it right side out, you can see that it hides it very well, and it's convenient that the yarn is the same color. All right, so where did that string go? There it is. And go ahead and give it a nice chain and a tug and a nice little pull. And if you're not sure, you can go ahead. I'm going to give it a second chain. Just, I don't want it to come out on me. And I'm going to hide these very well in just a second. Give it a generous strand. Pull it on through. Now let's go to the other side. And let's see what we can do here. This might actually work best if we line up the wattle stitches. So we're going to be working over 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let me see. Let's go ahead. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it's right here. Actually, let me go ahead and mark that with the stitch just so that you can see what I'm doing here as I line these up. I'll be taking it out in just a second. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is the single crochet of that, the beginning of that row. Okay, so I'm going to join this actually to the stitch right here, and I think that should work out well. So now I need to get a slip knot. I need to do better than that. Okay, there we go. And let's go ahead and take this out since I don't need it anymore. The string does not want to cooperate. All right. So let's go ahead and give it a chain. And let's go ahead and go right to the, let's go to that single crochet. And we're going to line that up again with the double crochet there with a slip stitch, and then into the chain 1 space, slip stitch, and then into the single crochet again. And I'm just going to work this with you with the camera rolling because I know some folks may need a little bit of extra support. This is probably one of the more complicated parts of this entire project, ironically. And I'm hoping you're finding that this is quite a relaxing and easy project, since it is all just straight wattle stitches. And if you didn't know the wattle stitch before, you certainly are well acquainted with it now. And I think you're going to enjoy how this fabric gives a lot of ease when you're wearing it. Now it may stretch out a bit over time because of the you know, the fiber is cotton, but I think you'll find it does have a lot of give to it too, and I think you'll enjoy that. All right, so I've worked these slip stitches across. Let's go ahead and work one more in this last stitch, and I can go in the churning chain. All right, let's go ahead and give it a tug and a chain. If you want to do the second one, you can do that. I think this one's going to hold a little bit better. I was just a little concerned about the neck edge on the other side. Okay, so now I need to turn this right side out, but let me go ahead and show you what we have. And this collar is going to have a little bit of a dip in it, but we're going to work some finishing rounds in just a minute here, and I'll show you. Let's go ahead and turn this right side out. Okay, now with the right side facing, you can see, I'll give you a better view of this in just a second, but I just wanted to show you the sleeves. Of course, all these strands will be hidden in just a bit. Okay, so now we're going to do something very important. We are going to work a very simple edging around the neck. It's going to be a 2 round repeat. We're going to work around the neck and also around the armhole openings, and that'll help to give it a little more shape as we go. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to turn this with the back side facing, and at any stitch in the back, so I want this to be hidden, so that's why I want to do it around the back of the collar. We're going to join our yarn. There we go. I'm going to make another slip stitch, or I guess a slip knot rather, and I'm joining to the chain 1 space. Go ahead and chain 1, and we're going to work going to work a single crochet in there, and then we're going to work a single crochet in that next single crochet of the wattle stitch. So that's what we're going to repeat around. We're going to work a single crochet in that next chain 1 space, and then a single crochet in the single crochet of the wattle stitch. So for every wattle stitch, we're going to be adding 2 single crochets. Okay. So go ahead and work that, and I will show you what I do when I get to the corner. So I'll just work with you here because it's not going to be much further. 1, 2, 1, and then 2. And this is where it may be a little bit tricky, going down the row ends where we had the decreases for the neck edge. And what I want you to do is just take a look at the spacing that you have here, and what you're going to do as you go down is you're going to have to eyeball this, but just work this so that the stitches are evenly spaced. You don't want them to be spaced too far apart, but you also don't want them to be too close together either. So I would just go with what looks even to you. The stitch count will vary with the sizes, and it may even vary by a stitch or two from garment to garment that you may make, because again, you just want to go for what looks nice and even. Okay, and this will, okay, so we can find, there we go. It's a little bit challenging sometimes. There we go. So if you can see the way I'm spacing it, and what's really nice about this yarn is that it is very forgiving. Let's go ahead and bring this strand to the back side so that it'll be easier to hide once we complete these rounds. So I'm trying to bring you down to where we work in the wattle stitches again, and then once we get to the wattle stitches, let's go ahead and put a stitch here. Trying to figure out, there we go. We'll just work over that stitch completely. So once we get to the wattle stitches, then we can get back to our 1 in the single crochet and 1 in the chain 1 space. So let me give you another view of this. Okay. Now, if you're working this and you're finding that it's all bunching together or it's just way too many stitches and too loose, just take it out and then try again until you get it to where it looks even. So I'm going to go ahead and continue working this all the way around the collar. After working this all the way around the collar edge, you can join with a slip stitch to that very first stitch of the round. And we're going to now chain 1. And this is what we're going to work all the way around. We're going to work a slip stitch in each stitch. And this is working through the top 2 strands, okay? Now if you work this along, be careful that you don't work this too tightly because it can tend to pull the fabric a little bit too tight, okay? So if you need to, you can always bump up to the next size hook if you find that your slip stitching is just a little on the tight side. But go ahead and work this all the way around. After working the slip stitch all the way around, join with a slip stitch to that first chain, the turning chain actually, and then give it a chain and a tug, and go ahead and cut a generous strand so that we can hide this in just a short while. Let me show you how to fasten or finish off the sleeves. Let's go ahead and bring this knot to the back side. There we go. Okay, so now for the sleeves, we're going to do the exact same thing that we did to finish off this edge. And what I'm recommending that you do is join in the underarm, which would be right down here, and do this for both of the sleeves. And you can join, I don't know, maybe even in the chain 1 space. That might be a good place to join. And again, we just want to put these in the least conspicuous places so that they're not showing. And join with a slip stitch, chain, and let's go ahead and do a single crochet in that chain 1 space, and then we're going to work a single crochet on that next single crochet, and then we're going to do that around where there are, whoops, I'm about to do a wattle stitch there, don't want to do that. We want to do, just work this around evenly, just like we did around the neck edge, and just make sure that again, they're evenly spaced and you don't want these to be too loose or too tight. So go ahead and work these around the armhole. And one thing you may want to do, and again, the actual stitch count may vary from crocheter to crocheter, and that is perfectly fine as long as the look is even. But what you are going to want to do is to get a stitch count of how many stitches are on the armhole, and you want to match that as closely, if not exactly. I would rather match that exactly on the other armhole as well. So that way, the arm openings do look even as the sweater or shirt is being worn. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work the rows 1 and 2, like I said, just like we did on the neck collar. We're going to work around the arm edging, join with a slip stitch at the end of this round, and then work the slip stitches all the way around. So go ahead and complete the edging for both of the armholes. All right, I have finished doing the edging around both of the arms. And just for the record, I got approximately 63 stitches around each armhole opening. I just do want to warn you that this slip stitch can be a little tight, and if you don't want it to be so tight, be sure to change to the next size hook up to give you a little bit more ease. So now we have one more thing to do. As you can see, there are a lot of loose threads left about in this design, and I'm just going to give you a quick little tutorial. I like to do this at the end of my videos in case folks haven't seen this before. And this is how to hide these loose ends. And what I like to do is I like to hide these on the back side with the back side facing, of course. You don't want these on the outside. And you can just run this underneath the stitches. This one's going to be easy because I'm just going to run it underneath these single crochets. But you can easily work these, into any of the stitches as you go across. And this is going to be a little bit tight under these particular stitches. Actually, let me just run this down into some of the other stitches just to show you that it's not necessarily as tight as all of that. Okay, and I can run it underneath some of these stitches like so. And I'm going to run it up again under some of these just to make sure that they are secured very well. Okay, so let's go ahead. That should be good. And then I'm going to clip the stitch and pull back on it just a little bit so that it is secure. There we go. And I've cut that. And so that strand is hidden. So now I have several other strands to hide as I go about this. And again, just make sure that you do this on the inside, you know, with the wrong side facing. All right, well, let me go ahead and I will show you what we have here. I hope you enjoyed making this design with me today. If you did, please comment below in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. God bless. Bye-bye.